My name is Terry. I'm sitting in my apartment, looking at the peace around me, and it's hard to believe how far I've come. Just a few months ago, my life was a mess, all because of my so-called family. It all came to a head one day in the hospital. I was lying there, still sore from appendix surgery, when my family walked in. My father, Henry, came in first, with that impatient look on his face as if my illness was an inconvenience. My mother, Lisa, followed closely behind, her lips pursed, already judging me. Then there was my younger brother, Jake, unshaven and fidgety, and my sister, Ava, clutching her phone with that fake, worried expression she always put on when she needed money. Without even asking how I was, my mother blurted out, "Terry, thank goodness you're awake. We have a problem." I stared at her, hoping for a shred of humanity, but it never came. My father stepped forward and said, "Jake crashed the car on his way back from a trip. The repair shop wants $8,000 up front." Before I could even process that, Ava cut in, saying that her child's daycare was about to kick him out if she didn't pay the overdue fees by the end of the week. I sat there in my hospital gown, with staples in my abdomen, and they were asking me for money. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. For years, I'd been the one propping them up. I'd paid Jake's rent when he was short, helped Ava with daycare costs, and kept my parents' finances afloat. But when I was in the hospital, needing them, they sent me a picture of themselves on a beach, with a simple "sending good vibes." I'd always believed that family would be there when you needed them most. I was 32 years old, and until that moment in the hospital, I'd held on to that naive belief. It all started on a fateful afternoon when I collapsed on the kitchen floor of my Denver apartment. The pain was excruciating, I could barely breathe. By the time the paramedics got me to the ER, the doctor was talking about a ruptured appendix and emergency surgery. As they rushed me down the hall, I knew I had just enough time to send a message to my family. With shaking hands, I opened the family group chat and typed, "Emergency surgery. I'm scared." I waited for them to come, to show some sign of concern. Instead, all I got was that beach selfie and that heartless message. For 5 days, I was alone in the hospital. No one came to see me, no one called to check on me. Then, when I finally turned my phone off silent, there were 63 missed calls and a text from my mother saying, "Call back now. Everything is falling apart." I didn't call her back. I just sat there, looking at the phone, wondering how they could be so heartless. But there were two people who were there for me. My cousin, Mia, came into my room a few hours after the surgery. She was carrying a tote bag filled with things I didn't even know I needed: a charger, clean socks, lip balm, and a loose cotton dress for when I was discharged. She also had a folder with my insurance papers because she'd already called my apartment manager to get them. When she saw that I was alone, her face changed, and I knew she understood more than I'd said. Later that night, my grandmother, Rose, came in. She was 85 years old, and it was well past visiting hours, but she didn't care. She shuffled in with her cane, a container of homemade broth under her arm, and sat down beside me. She didn't ask for details, she just sat there, offering silent support. The next morning, Mia was on the phone with the billing department, arguing about a coding error on my chart like it was a personal battle. Rose was folding my extra blanket and asking the nurse practical questions about my recovery. These two women did more for me in one day than my immediate family had done in years. Back in the hospital room, as my family was asking for money, I finally found the strength to say no. I'd always been the one to give in, to help them out, but this time was different. I looked at them and said, "No. You're not getting my money, my car, or access to my apartment. And when I'm discharged, all the automatic payments I make for you will stop." My family was shocked. Jake laughed, thinking I was joking. My mother tried to guilt-trip me, saying, "We're all exhausted. We've had a horrible week." But I wasn't going to be swayed. I reminded them of how they'd abandoned me in the hospital, how they'd only come to me when they needed something. My grandmother, Rose, stood up then. Her voice was calm but firm as she said, "She almost died, and you left her alone. You didn't call, you didn't come. And now you come here asking for money without even asking how she is. You should be ashamed of yourselves." My family tried to make excuses, but it was too late. I'd seen them for who they really were. After they left, I felt a sense of relief. I knew I'd made the right decision. Over the next few days, I started taking steps to protect myself. Mia helped me cancel all the automatic payments to my family. She also called a locksmith to change the locks on my apartment because Jake still had a spare key from when he'd stayed with me. Sure enough, as soon as the money stopped flowing, they started to notice. Jake texted me asking why his key didn't work. Ava said her daycare payment was rejected, and my father said the house transfer had bounced. But not one of them asked how I was recovering. Then, things got even worse. An Adult Protective Services investigator came to my hospital room, saying there was an anonymous complaint that I was financially exploiting my grandmother. I knew right away who had made the call. They'd lost access to my money and my apartment, so they were trying to turn me into the villain. Thankfully, Rose and Mia were there to defend me. Rose explained everything about her life, how I'd only helped her voluntarily, and Mia brought in all the documentation to prove it. In the end, the investigator apologized, and I knew they'd been exposed. But the surprises didn't stop there. A few days after I got home from the hospital, a plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside were photocopies of old photos and a letter. The photos showed my father, Henry, with a woman I'd never seen before and a little boy. The letter was from a woman who said my father had had a relationship in another city for years while telling us he was on extra work trips. The little boy in the photo was now a 22-year-old named Ethan. I was in shock, but at the same time, it felt like all the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. I'd always suspected my family was hiding something, but I never imagined it would be this. I decided to reach out to Ethan carefully. Mia helped me, and we found him online. He was polite and cautious. He said he wasn't looking for money, that he'd only agreed to be contacted because his mother had told him someone in my family might want the truth one day. I met Ethan at a coffee shop. He was tall and had my father's chin and my grandmother's eyes. He told me about his life. He was in a carpentry program at a local college and working part-time at a furniture store. He'd had a tough time after his mother's medical bills, but he never asked me for help. Instead, he kept apologizing for any trouble his existence might cause. I brought Ethan to meet Rose. She took one look at him and opened her arms. "Well, you had a long drive. Sit down and eat something," she said. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became part of our small circle. Mia helped him improve his resume and find a better job. I helped him apply for scholarships. Rose taught him how to make her famous apple pie. As summer turned to fall, my life changed completely. I got promoted at work, and I no longer felt the need to give my raise away to my family. I started doing things for myself, taking weekend hikes, painting my bedroom, and learning to cook for pleasure. My family kept leaving voicemails, saying they were sorry, that they missed me, but there was always a hidden request at the end. I stopped listening to their messages. I'd finally learned that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up when you need them. A few weeks before Christmas, my mother left one last voicemail. Her voice was small and defeated. She said the holidays didn't feel the same without me and asked if I could help them get through the month. But this time, I felt nothing. I deleted the voicemail and went back to setting the table for dinner. Ethan was bringing a fresh loaf of bread, Mia had made a chocolate cake, and Rose was in the living room waiting for us. I realized then that saying no to my family had saved my life. It had given me the space to build a real family with people who truly cared about me. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you loved? Did it break your heart, or did it teach you how to protect yourself?